Oh man, now I feel like Fox, what is his name? Swiper! We were foiled. Welcome back, my little filmer dudes and super sleuths, to another Let's Solve Only Murders in the Building Season 4. Of course, as always, spoilers, so careful proceeding with the video. The Dudenoff case is closed. The Westies didn't do it. It's confirmed, kind of, maybe. Honestly, I have super mixed feelings about this. I'll give it to the writers. They got me good, but I was so wanting there to be 2 murders so badly, and that honestly seems like a final season type of move. But now I feel like since they murdered juked us out, we can't do it again for next season. So honestly, this twist is a little bittersweet for me. I mean, honestly, if we're gonna go there, go there. Let there be 2 murders. Otherwise, it's a little convenient, and I don't really like convenient writing. I had theorized a second murder in episode 3, all because of a threat that seems similar to a different threat that is somehow not connected at all. It's so convenient. They knifed out Dudenoff's death and the Westies. Are the Westies perhaps lying? I don't know, possibly. It would be my dream that they are lying. And that Helga had warned the Westies when Mabel contacted them and they organized all of this. I don't know, but just because they didn't kill Dudenoff doesn't mean that they didn't, or didn't not kill Sazz, you know what I'm trying to say. Or at least involved. No, they're not involved as a whole, but one person from that group totally is. Before we answer that, we have 2 big questions to answer. 2 of them remain. Who is Sazz's murderer? And 2, who poisoned Winnie? At this point, since we know that season 5 is supposed to be the final season, at least the final planned season, I'm now starting to think the same thing that everyone else is starting to think, that we won't actually find out who poisoned Winnie until season 5. Are we possibly going to get a Professor Moriarty character and have this guy be the big bad of the whole season throughout episode 1 and 5? Could that be Howard? I personally think Howard is going to be the victim in the next season, possibly because he's helping, or was helping, the Professor Moriarty character, and the Professor Moriarty character decided he had to go. It's not Wild Theory time. I have something else for then, but for now, only time will tell. But my guess, it's gonna be either Charles' sister or Howard. So who shot Glenn? So if we figure out who shot Glenn, then we can figure out who shot Sazz. No time wastage, it was Marshall. Marshall P. Pope, whose name isn't Marshall P. Pope, done did shot both Sazz and Glenn Stubbins. So why did Marshall shoot Glenn? Well, you see, Glenn has metal plates in his head, and they were mentioned at the start of episode 6, but they were teased in episode 4 when Glenn banged his head against a trash can lid, which those are actually insanely hard. They're very dangerous. They're not feeble. He did that with no apparent injury. He was fine, and I thought that was a little weird, but the metal plates explain it. Well, then in episode 5, I think Glenn actually did recognize Marshall, but because of the metal plates in his head, they are clearly affecting his mental state. His wires got crossed, and he mistranslated Marshall as Mabel. Marshall. Mabel. Both names that end with L. Last week, I theorized that Glenn had recognized Marshall, and Marshall had recognized Glenn, but I now know exactly from where. Ladies and gentlemen, Project Ronkonkoma. I did a little bit of Googling, and Ronkonkoma is actually a hamlet, which is a small settlement that is smaller than a village, but is still considered public, like a very, very tiny town. There's also a lake there. However, Marshall is the whole reason that this movie never actually happened or came out, because no one ever heard of it, and I bet you Project Ronkonkoma is probably just the working title. It wasn't even the actual title. Probably not. That's probably too inside baseball for the show, but it's fine. Nevertheless, whatever happened, it was bad, like really, really bad. So bad that it landed, and to quote the famous legendary sports philosopher Shaq O'Neal, are you ready for this? Glenn Stubbins in the hospital, thus having the need for metal plates put into his head. In episode 4, upon finding Sazz's paradise, Oliver asks is this a toxic waste dump? To which Charles gleefully responds, yup, the government cleaned it up. It was such a weird exchange, and they were kind of like, I don't know, it was so weird to me, and I've not stopped thinking about it since. What happened on that set likely happened at that location, and Marshall is to blame. It's a stretch, I know, but regardless, if it didn't happen at the Sazz Academy, whatever, then it definitely happened on Project Ronkonkoma on set. The point is, Marshall is to blame for whatever happened. So how does Glenn exactly fit into all this? Well, Glenn, according to the IMDb page, was on the movie set as one of the stuntmans. However, Glenn is not the stuntman that Helga/Sazz was referring to. He was just one of the stuntmen that was there, and he got the short end of the stick, to say the least, and whatever Marshall did landed Glenn in the hospital. And as we've seen in episodes past, Marshall is quite passionate about filmmaking. Thinking back, I don't think Marshall is a natural writer. We've even seen people criticize his script and question his writing ability before. Well, ever since his little stunt on Project Ronkonkoma, I gather he's been blacklisted as an actor. So now he's got to disguise himself to change his name and go a different route. Writing, because if you're passionate about something, you will do whatever it takes to see your vision through. You see, I don't think Marshall was trying to be a stunt person to be a stunt person. I think Marshall was an actor trying to learn stunting so that he could be an actor who does his own stunts. So he sought out Sazz's help, and of course, Sazz, seeing his passion for stunting, for the filmmaking, for the arts, that coupled with her desire to teach stunting, led her to say, yes, I will teach you, Marshall P. Pope, whose name is not Marshall P. Pope, but she came to regret that decision in the long run. Rest in peace, Sazz. Marshall's opening monologue is different in retrospect. His Ace Ventura line seemed weird and a little out of place to me, like why was it there? And now we know why. He said, I can quote David Foster Wallace and Ace Ventura, and then he did flawlessly.
Alrighty then.
This man can act, or at least he think he can. After all, actors are crazy, notoriously, stereotypically. Either way, he's got to disguise himself because he's been blacklisted as an actor and he needs another shot at making a movie. But Sazz found out about Marshall's deception and his involvement with this movie, and she tried to warn Bev frickin' Mellon, but got herself killed instead by her own protege. Marshall was the big problem on your set. Marshall was a bad relationship that she couldn't break. But who is the second murderer? I still think it's Rudy. We keep forgetting that there were 4 options. Four. It keeps coming up. 4. There are 4 options from which the shot could have been fired. The Sazz family's apartment, Dudenoff's apartment, Vince Fish's apartment, and Rudy's apartment. It couldn't have been the Sazz family or Vince Fish's because they were playing hell that night. Couldn't have been from Dudenoff's apartments because the brother-sisters were in Dudenoff's apartments looking for Dudenoff. So what does that leave us? Rudy's apartment. And Rudy claims to have been out of town, and I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. He's out of town that night. Again, notice how Marshall perfectly describes Rudy as one of the culprits, and he says this person has to be in peak physical condition. Now, let's think about that description not as a description, but as an intimate compliment. Because if you ask me, is anyone in peak human condition? Okay. That might have been so loud. As always, it's Wild Theory Time, the segment of the show where I make outlandish claims that are sometimes partly correct. Here we go. My wild theory. Rudy is gay. Marshall is gay. They are lovers.
Denial is a river in Egypt. Your husband is gay.
Think about it. I might get a lot of fire for this, but if anybody wants to lash out, I think I'm actually covered in this area. So let this man cook.
Yes, let this man cook.
That is actually honestly why I wore pink under this shirt, or under this. It's like a, I don't know what the name of this. It's corduroy. I found Rudy's mannerisms throughout this entire show to be a little zesty. Go back and watch him cover his mouth after he says he hates Christmas. Zest.
Zest.
Go back and watch him speak and interact in any way. Zest.
Zest.
And finally, did it not seem weird to you how they pointed out how Helga wasn't Rudy's girlfriend? He said, and I quote, "Oh yeah, in addition to setting a human on fire, we also lied about me having a girlfriend. May God have mercy." Zest.
Fine zester.
And Marshall? Oh my goodness, listen, that man dresses a little too nicely to be a straight man. And look at that ass, that pose. Girl, you know he's twerking it on his free time. Get it, Marshall. But if the Brothers Sisters movie, The Desecration of Alice, I don't actually remember the name, if that movie is a hint from the writers, then love is the ultimate motivation this season for anything, even killing. Therefore, it stands to reason that Rudy would commit this act simply because he loves Marshall and vice versa. After all, Marshall is a failed actor and Rudy is a failed actor as well. What's more romantic than common failure? Bottom line, these two have the hots for each other and done the deed, and then afterward likely done the deed. Marshall sought Sazz from Dudenoff's apartment because he has amazing vision, and then Rudy, being in peak human condition, disposed of the body in the only way that he knew how, in the incinerator. Well, that is it. That is this week's breakdown theory. I'm not sure what we're doing at this point. We're trying to make sense of everything. Is everything I said a stretch? Absolutely, but I think there's some truth in the fact that Marshall shot Dudenoff and Rudy shot Dudenoff. Was it for love? Probably, possibly not. Are they brothers? Also probably not. I think there's truth. Both of them did it. I think they both did it. It's high time that we have not just one, but two male murderers. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. My social media links are in the description below, and I will see you next time. You've just been Montified.